Up, it's Way Up with Angela Yee. I'm Angela Yee, and this is exciting for me because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Today, branding and real estate. We have Sarah Golan here, who is my broker. I talk about you all the time, so everybody knows you. And Ryan Serhant is here as well.
Hello.
Sell it like Serhant and also brand it like Serhant.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like people also are so familiar with you from when you were on $1 Million Listing, too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so here we are. And your background is so interesting to me because originally you were an actor.
Yeah.
And then now seems like more fun than that for some reason for you.
Yeah, it depends on how you define fun, I think. It's, my life is a mixture of everything just because the way things are bought and sold has totally changed. Mm-hmm. Like it used to, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, if Sarah and I wanted to sell a house, the first thing that we would do was not make a video about the house. Right? It's not, we wouldn't think about the story of the house. We wouldn't start thinking about how to create attention for that listing through video content because I've got to be on every platform to reach the kids of the buyers. Now we get a new house and we're like, okay, well, before anything, we've got to shoot the property tour tomorrow morning. And I got to make sure it's not raining. And I got to make sure the house is ready to go. I got to make sure it's beautiful because that's how people buy and sell. And they send the videos off to their friends and their family. So it's kind of a mixing of both of my worlds, right? Mm-hmm. It's sales, but it's also performance, whatever, that's what it means to be in sales today.
And I've been to your office in Soho.
Yeah.
And so I've seen the whole operation as far as how important the digital aspect of it, since you just brought that up.
Yeah.
And having a whole team and like a podcast room and all of those things are also important to what it is that you do. Now, Sarah, when I first met Sarah, she sold me my first ever house.
Yeah.
And then a few others
I remember.
since.
It was like online homes back in the day.
Yeah, it's a
long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
And I met her online, working for Online Homes.
Yeah.
And it was early on in Sarah's career, but since then, we've done a lot of different things together. I told you I have another brownstone that I just recently posted that I've been working on for 3.5 years at this point. But we're near the finish line finally.
Almost there. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You had a brownstone that was 4 years in the making. You have a brownstone that's 4 years in the making.
I showed it for sale.
You made a show about that, right?
I did make a show about that. Yeah, it was. I think because Bravo, when we were doing Bravo, they really cared about the. And it's so wild that one day this is all going to be like we're going to sound so old talking about this, but the TV guide and the guide on cable, right? So the guide on cable for the DVR. Because a lot of people would have, I want a DVR $1 Million Listing New York. Mm-hmm. And so every spinoff we would do would be, $1 Million Listing New York, Ryan's Wedding, which was a different show, but the DVR tag had to be there.
Right.
And so that's how they would think about it. So it was, $1 Million Listing New York, Ryan's Renovation. Separate show about renovating houses, but they just wanted to grab that same audience because it tied back to ad dollars for that tag.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't know that was.
And now, I mean, I don't know how many people listening even like go to the. I mean, maybe you do go to the guide. Very, very rarely.
I talking to them.
Do you see? Yeah. Exactly. You're talking to the remote. You're on Netflix. But yeah, we had a separate show, and it took me 4 years to renovate that house.
And you said you would never do a renovation again.
I mean, it's never say never.
But you did say it at the time.
I know it was painful, and it was.
I feel you.
It was one budget and one amount of time, and it ended up costing me like 4 times as much and taking 4 times as long. And it's death by 1,000 costs. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And I'm not trying to talk it. I mean, doing a renovation I think is awesome. Once you're done, you basically get to live in your dream home. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the most fun parts of home ownership. But you just have to make sure you work with the right professionals,
which is hard.
So they don't change order you to death. And then it's like, oh, but you didn't want this tile? Oh, it's so weird because we already bought it. So now if you want a different tile with a little bit of a different edge, you got to repay for. And it's like, it's hard to budget costs. For that.
Yeah. And, that's been really, like you said, trying to find the right people. But that's hard, too, because it may seem like the right person because everybody, when they come in and they're trying to sell you a service, they are amazing. And you're like, I'm so excited to work with this person. They said they're going to get it done in X amount of time. And then sometimes it works out and a lot of times it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then now you're in the hole. Like there was interior designer who I worked with at first, and I thought he was going to be amazing. Sarah introduced, I was like, he's going to be amazing.
He was a talker.
He lived a block away from the property. You know, he reached out to me. I was like, okay, this guy looks great. And you end up paying and putting down payments, and it's hard to get that money back if they don't deliver the services also. Then it turns into a whole nother thing. But that's why I tell people when they want to do a renovation, if you want to do real estate, you have to have enough money for things to go wrong too.
Yeah, you got to have that cushion. You got to budget plus, right? And just be prepared. And it's not for everybody. But listen, some of the best real estate investments out there, whether it's your home or investment property, are all renovated homes, right? It's all value creation. And that's really what you're doing.
Well, let's talk about some of the cities that you're in as far as the Serhant offices, because you started in 2020, right, with the real estate, with your own company, with Serhant.
Yeah.
So what made you know that that was the right time to step out and leave your former agency?
Sarah Golan told me to. She was like, go. This is the worst time ever. That means it's the best time ever.
She did not. Did she really tell you
that? In part.
We
talked about it a lot.
We talked about this.
We were going to do it. Yeah, we were going to do it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, a lot earlier.
And then it's hard when you're busy and there's things going on. And then, there were issues and like things that we had to work out. But it was, we then made the determination, okay, 2020, the beginning of a new decade, 2020 is going to be the best year ever. Here we go. And then people started getting sick in China. And then Italy, and
you
then
started
Spain.
right at the time.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, they're going to close down the bridges and the tunnels and quarantine Manhattan. And I've got an asthmatic mother-in-law who is with me. We had a 1-year-old baby at the time, so we went to New Hampshire for a week, and we stayed for longer than a week.
For a period of time.
Yeah, but it was I don't know. We've always done big things at the absolute worst time. Like I got my license to sell real estate the day Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy in 2008, and but I also think like the best time to do things is when everyone else is scared and pulling back, because life always finds a way, unless it's a comet that is going to kill the planet like it did the dinosaurs. Life finds a way. Like we always find a way, and as the world turns, life finds a way faster.
Right.
Like as we think about COVID, like it's been 5 years since 2019.
That's crazy.
That's
I remember when it started. I was in Detroit when COVID, and they hadn't shut down Detroit yet. Yeah. But New York was kind of shutting down.
And San Francisco.
And I was like, well, maybe it's not going to be here. People were like, oh, it's not coming here.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what she did? She went on FaceTime showings with me
during
COVID. Yeah.
So that was actually probably the time when I was like, I would like to get my real estate license also. During the pandemic, Sarah was doing her showings, and it was the two of us. She would go to a showing to go on FaceTime and show people, and I would just go with her because a lot of them were in my neighborhood where I live. And so I've never really had time to go and do those things. I was always at work. I was always running around. But now I'm walking around the neighborhood. Now I'm going to showings with Sarah. I decided to start taking my real estate classes online.
Yeah.
But at that time, I didn't finish.
Yeah.
Right? I just was like, all right, let me just take these classes so I can, learn more about it.
Sure.
And then afterward, I was like, you know what? Let me go back and finish these classes and take the test and get my license. And I did.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yay.
Boom. I'm going to tell you what was really important for me with Sarah being my broker was the way that she approached me about real estate wasn't, let me hurry up and sell you this house, whatever the house is. I don't care if it's a great investment or not. She was really like, Angela, this isn't the right house for you. Here's the reasons why. And I appreciated somebody being really honest with me because for a lot of people, this is going to be the biggest purchase that you can make. Not everybody, but for a lot of people, this is the biggest purchase, and it's an important one.
Yeah.
And I never want to walk away feeling like that person got me.
Yeah.
And so that has got to be the worst feeling. And listen, people talk about real estate is great. And so I would never, I love it. I've invested in several different properties, but it's not a surefire thing. People always try to act like real estate, but everything is not a great deal.
True.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got to be smart. You've got to do your due diligence. You've got to look at comparable properties. Don't ever purchase anything that has a quote unquote guaranteed return. You're always going to get burned. Right. And sometimes when you're paying too much, it's actually a good thing because you're paying for something premium. Like if we look at in our world that we live in, right, the greater New York or any of the markets we're in right now, a lot of the best returns on investments, whether people live there or didn't, is when they bought, they felt like they were overpaying, and there was cheaper property to buy. And now when they go to sell, their buyer is now overpaying for their property, and those cheap properties they passed on are still cheap.
Right.
And they're sitting there.
Okay.
And they haven't
Makes
moved.
Sense. I feel better.
Right? So like it is what it is. I mean, it's like look at LVMH, look at any retail
Hermes,
items.
Those Birkin bags don't go
They
on
hold
sale.
value.
They don't. People want to feel like when they're spending money, they're spending money on value for something that other people want. So if it's too cheap or too discounted, or you think it's too good of a deal, there's probably is. Yeah, and there's probably a reason for it. And so it's just been interesting to watch and kind of learn in the markets. But I'm super excited for the two of you, and you're gonna crush it.
Oh yeah, no, we're part of the team. I'm coming in under Sarah. That's our first time really announcing it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be joining the Serhant team. I'm part of the Sarah Golan team.
Amazing.
She's at Serhant.
Yay!
Yes.
Welcome. Let's
Angela.
go.
You know, so
Oh, you have
This
cupcakes
is
and
the time.
we
everything.
have cupcakes.
We're
These are
celebrating
left over
this.
from Dan's birthday, my producer. We have a cupcake celebration. You know what I wanted to ask you about too? Commercial real estate now, because that's a hot topic.
Yeah.
With a lot of people doing hybrid and not
Yes.
having to go into the office, and we've been hearing a lot of horror stories about these vacant commercial properties just
High
sitting
rates,
there. Yes. So, what are your thoughts about that, and how do you turn that around, or is it?
I like commercial. It's a different muscle. You know, it's like being a doctor. Like one doctor could be a good, general physician, but it doesn't mean you're going to have them put your shoulder back together. So it's the same body, right? It's the same license, but it's definitely very different. There's a lot more kind of like you have to have a much better understanding of the law and of zoning and of code when you're looking at commercial property that way. But then it's sometimes a far less emotional experience, right? Because you're buying a warehouse for storage.
Yeah.
You're buying server space. You're buying retail space or kind of office space for reuse. Like you said, you came down to our office in Soho. Our office in
Beautiful
Soho,
office.
when you come to it, looks I don't know, every floor looks a little bit different, but it's set up in it and it's operated like an office. But it was built as a retail store. That was Tommy Hilfiger.
That was. See, I thought it was. And Crate and Barrel is right.
Crate and Barrel's on Broadway.
Okay.
So our building was built for Tommy Hilfiger. It was they ground up new construction, built it for them. But then the world changes. So all of a sudden you have this 15,000 square foot building, multiple floors. No one wants to go to the third floor to buy jeans anymore. And so so then what do you do with it? And it was there for a long time. So there's a repurposing of commercial space and retail space that you can think about, which is what's happening a lot right now.
Right.
So office space being turned into residential. You have hotels being turned into different uses, and I don't know, and people are okay with it. So I think it's pretty cool. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there right now, more so than I think people think.
Yeah, there's a lot of crisis, right, around people saying, oh, the real estate market is terrible right now. It's turbulent. Interest rates are soaring. But then people are saying, well, the interest rates are going to drop. But like you said, nothing is guaranteed when it comes to saying it's going to drop 6 times. How do you know that? Like, that's impossible for anybody to even be able to predict. And another thing I saw recently was Airbnb. They're actually putting together, I guess it's like a commission to kind of address the issues of not enough housing for people. And Airbnb, they feel like, and in New York, they changed the laws a lot. It's harder for people to be able to Airbnb their property. Like, Sarah, you had one in the city, and you were like, I can't do that anymore.
Oh, no, we're just doing regular leases. We're back to that. Yeah.
And New York City likes their taxes, right? And so with
Tell me
Airbnbs, they
about
don't
it.
get their hotel taxes.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that was why.
Yeah,
But
listen, they're going to talk about safety and security, and it's going to be this, that. But really what it's about is New York City makes a significant amount of money on hotel tax. Like when you go and you book, you go online, you click a room, it's like $200 a night. It's amazing. But then your bill's $372, and you're like, what just happened? New York City just happened. So, and it's really hard to police Airbnbs unless you were to impose some kind of, like, I guess, state or federal tax on the company as a whole, which isn't going to happen. So it's just, it came down to taxes. It's always about money.
Right. And I want to ask about when it comes to being brokers now, there's definitely, or real estate salespeople.
Yeah.
How have things evolved from the traditional way that it used to be? It's very non-traditional now. And I know that I saw a podcast where you were talking about how Compass tried to do this whole like salary,
Yep.
this whole thing where they paid their agents a salary,
Yeah.
but then they had to switch it back
Yes.
because it wasn't really working
Yeah.
the way that they anticipated, which I feel like we could have foreshadowed that.
Yeah.
But what are some ways that now things are evolving when it comes to selling real estate?
Well, I mean, to go to that first point about salaried salespeople, you get what you pay for, right? Like when you have salaried workers, you don't want to pay them that much because it's salary. So it's like it feels like it's guaranteed and you have to pay. So then it's only 9 to 5, and then you always end up paying more. Right? You end up paying more either through mistakes, you end up paying more because it's going to take twice as long or whatever it might be. What you want is someone who is completely incentivized, which we have more than ever now. But different ways that the world has changed in terms of selling real estate, right? I guess the big way if you came to our office is it's content to community to commerce. Like that's a big part of the math equation that we work on all the time. Sarah and I and our studios team and our ID Lab team, which is the creative agency and all the agents, is how are you creating organic content that's unique to you and your personal brand as a salesperson that drives in and helps you build a community, whether it's a community of one or a community of a million, and then how do you create commerce through that community? In the same way that someone might be selling an energy drink or clothes or anything. Real estate is not that different. It's just far more expensive.
Yeah.
And so that is probably the biggest way that things have changed. I mean, we have an agent that works with us. I think he just turned 21. This is his biggest listing ever. It's like $18 million, and he got it through TikTok.
That's crazy. He got it through TikTok?
TikTok. We have agents now, junior agents. Sarah works with some of them. We have a lot of them. Like if you're under the age of 30 and you are definitely under the age of 25, but under the age of 30 and you are in sales, like they don't know how to generate business unless it's through social.
That's amazing.
Unless it's in DM, YouTube Shorts, through TikTok. Like it makes me feel so old. Like it's just the way we talk. They're just like, what? What did you, what?
The first time I met Ryan, I always considered, I had never watched $1 Million Listing, but I knew of Ryan. I'm like, that's the broker I want to work with. And why? Because he's the media broker. He was doing what no one else was doing through video, through his show, through Instagram. Like, you were big on Instagram when I didn't see any other brokers the way I saw you on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that the content looks, I think, very polished.
Very professional.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not
Yeah, we
raining
use
outside. It always
real
looks
people.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that works really well. I also love watching the videos on Instagram and TikTok where the apartments are ridiculous and like ridiculous in a bad way. Where you're like, what? This has no kitchen. This has no toilet. You got to share down the hallway with everybody else. I can't believe this is $1,400 a month.
Box.
I wish we could do more of those. Unfortunately, you always have to give you have to get owner approval.
Yeah.
You
And
know, like
nobody's approving.
Yeah, we can't walk into. We do that, with the TV shows too. The producers are always like, "Oh, we should do an episode with a place that's just awful." Like, great. You go talk to that owner and say, "Hey, we're going to put your awful home on TV and talk about how you made it awful." Like no one wants to sign up for that unless there's some gimmick or gag, and then it's not authentic, and then it's kind of weird. But yeah, there's a lot of what I find so interesting, especially in a city like New York, is you'll walk by a building that's falling in on itself, where it does have one bathroom, and it's like people have been, living in here with like no furniture. It's just gross. It's crazy, and the price is $10 million.
You're like,
Because of the location.
You got to knock it down. Yeah, location.
Yeah.
You got to knock it down and start all over, but it's a great location.
Yeah. Yeah, we just sold a house for, I think, $19 million on West 10th Street because it's on West 10th Street, but it's going to take them $10 million to renovate it and put it together, so...
Yeah,
that sounds really expensive, and I totally get it.
But the value when it's done.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, whatever that number was, it sounded too expensive.
Right.
And 10 years before that, it sounded too expensive. I don't think I've ever done a great real estate deal where everyone said, "Wow, I think I'm getting this for too good of a deal." Like the buyer feels like they're paying too much. The seller feels like they sold it for too little. It's a win-win because the deal is getting done. And at the end of the day, both sides were right.
When it's time for you to have to go and tell somebody, let's just say their property isn't moving
Yeah.
and they've priced it too high, which, from the beginning it's hard because you want to be realistic but people have emotional attachments
Yep.
to their home. They always will think it's worth more than what the general public or what the market might call for. What
Yeah.
is it like to have to go in and be like, so in order for this, we're going to have to lower the price. Like, what are some tips that you have when it comes to dealing with people who have emotional attachments?
Good news sandwich.
Yeah.
Start with the good, you give them the bad, and close,
Yeah.
strong, positive.
The sandwich. What's
Yeah.
the sandwich? You start with what?
You start with all the positives about the house, and then you break it down with the comparables in the area. And then you close with, like, listen, we could take these steps or not, and it can sit a little bit longer. But if they're motivated, they'll come to terms, and then we'll come to a decision regarding a price drop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a doctor, right? Like a good doctor doesn't walk in and say, got the results, you're dead, right? They come in and they say, okay, have a seat. They talk to you, it's positive. The results are trending negatively, right? And then here's the solution. This is what we're going to do. I've been in this situation before. Even if they say there's a 1% chance of survival.
Right.
That sounds like a really drastic
Yeah,
analogy, but it's the pricing conversation for me, I've always found, and I learned this the hard way, is it's all about price. And so as long as you set expectations early on, then that conversation is expected. Like they know it's coming.
Right.
So you say, hey, this is the range. We can price at the higher end of the range to start or the lower end. This is what's going to happen if we do one or the other. If it doesn't sell and we price at the higher end, then let's have a conversation because it'll 99% of the time be about price. So then when you go to have that conversation, it's not like I don't know how to talk to you about this. It's, they were expecting it and they knew it was coming. The problem most people have, not just in real estate, but life in general, is they're too afraid to set expectations and they just hope it's all going to work out.
Right.
And then they have to have confrontation. And confrontation doesn't exist if you set expectations. And the expectations are hypothetical. Like, that's like a prenup in a marriage. Like let's not get divorced. But I don't know. Maybe you could meet a personal trainer who has like bigger shoulders than me. And like, I don't want my life to be over. So, I'm going to have to go find my own yoga trainer and then we got to deal with it. And, expectations were set.
Now, what about negotiating fees for the broker? Because
Hot topic right now.
Yeah, I see that is a hot
one.
topic. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I think that you get what you pay for. And I think that if the market, which is always the final decider, right? Like look at Bitcoin, right? Like everyone in the world saying Bitcoin is dumb, but it's here to stay. And so the world says, okay, fine. Like the market decides at the end of the day. If real estate commissions were too low, we would know. If they were too high, they'd be brought down by the marketplace. And the commission's lawsuit that I think you're referring to, that's been in the news in the state of Missouri, which is where that was brought about against the buy side fees being required payments of the seller. But what they don't really think about is it's done to create fairness in the marketplace. Otherwise, you have bad actors who control listing volume and do price fixing. So you can get around that by saying, hey, everyone should be represented, right? And because buying real estate, most people don't equate to like representing yourself in court, where you would definitely want to have an attorney. They don't think about maybe they're being taken advantage of if there's just one side representing the deal, because all of these states also have disclosure forms that state out that one side's fiduciary responsibility is only to the party signing. So, in Missouri, you have a fiduciary responsibility as the seller's agent to only represent the seller.
Right.
And so, it creates a lot of different conflicts of interest. And then when you go to sell, you're paying both sides of the fee anyway. So when you sell, you pay both sides. When you buy, you don't pay anything. So as long as you're buying and selling, one side is always being taken care of.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. I know it's under appeal or trying to be thrown out. I have no idea. I think it's just going to create just more transparency and clarity on fees, and I think that's probably fine.
Yeah,
and,
as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then it should be fine if you're transparent about it. Because I also see there's like online brokerages that will do
fixed fees and flat fees and
really
stuff.
a really low fee also.
Yeah, and I think you get what you pay for.
Right.
Like I don't know. I don't want to go to a fixed fee doctor. Like I don't know. I only have one life to live. Or you go to someone once told me, with as far as service goes, like especially with lawyers, a good lawyer. What is it? It's a bad lawyer is expensive. A bad lawyer. Have you heard this phrase? I can't remember it now off the top of my head. But it's something about, good lawyers are expensive, bad lawyers cost a fortune.
Right. I can see why.
It's always the cheap will cost you.
In the long run.
I strongly believe that.
On contractors, too, taking it back to real estate. You work with you always get that cheap bid from that contractor, and you're like, oh, hey, he's $1 million less. I'll go with you.
But when you think about it, if you're paying for a service and it's just a fixed fee, that broker that you're hiring at a discounted rate will not have a marketing budget. They're not going to do videos and beautiful. They're not going to present the way you would want, and the expectation that you have of a broker who's actually doing it and charging more for the services. But again, that translates to a higher sales price, better services.
It's just at the end. More regulation creates more costs for consumers. That's all it's going to do. And it's just going to put more power in the hands of less people.
Right.
It's just what's going to happen, Whereas like previously you could have your friend who has a license, have them represent you, But now if you're signing different disclosures and you've got to pay them and you're paying out of your pocket, maybe you say, you know what? Maybe I don't pay my friend. I don't know if she knows what she's doing. I guess I'm going to go work with somebody else. And you don't know what their incentives are. You don't, so we're working really, really hard to keep the industry as positive and as ethical of a place as possible and as transparent. I mean, we don't put everything across social and on TV because we can't hide anything.
Yeah.
People, when that lawsuit came out, people were saying, oh, it's because of shows like $1 Million Listing that show commissions on TV. That's why we're here. I'm like, we're the transparent ones.
Right.
We're the ones that are transparent. You're the one who's upset because what? Because we were honest and told people what fees are? Like, shame on you for trying to hide them and sneak them away. We're here because of you.
Well, another thing that's very transparent that we'll find out about you is they're doing a Harvard case study.
Yeah.
About Ryan Serhant.
Oh, they did one, yeah.
Yeah, so can you explain this and how this even came about?
They reached out to me, I guess, almost 2 years ago. And at first I didn't think it was real because someone from Harvard reaches out to you. Like, no, we'd like to write a case study on you for Harvard Business School. It's like, all right, what's it about? Sales, real estate, branding? What's it going to be? And they're like, no, the most interesting thing about you is your time management. And I was like, what?
That's a hard thing to master.
That is so boring. And they spent a year writing it. And they published it, I guess, at the end of last year, and they sent it to, it's framed in my office. But it is time management for repeatable success. And I was not fully aware of the things that I do for time management in the way they were when they dug it. And they interviewed people in my life. They went into it. And then I had to go there to Harvard and they presented the study and case findings.
What did you learn about yourself?
I learned that I view time as a currency. And it wasn't proactive actually. It was more as a way to get over loss and to get over a waste of time because especially early on in the real estate business you lose a deal and it pisses you off and you take it personally and it ruins your day, and then you just lost a day of your life because of an emotion. Well, that's weird. If someone yelled at me for 15 minutes, if those 15 minutes were dollars. And then I had $1,000 in my pocket, I wouldn't say, well, screw the $985 in my pocket and light them on fire. I'd probably say, good thing I have $985 to go invest in and use. Mm-hmm. And so I created this thing called the 1,000-minute rule, just to really help me emotionally move forward as productively as possible during the day, where you have 1,440 minutes a day, 440 of those roughly, everyone's different. You are sleeping, eating with your family, whatever, hanging out. And then on average, we all have about 1,000 minutes a day to work, be productive, go to school, do whatever it is that you do. And so how are you using those minutes wisely? So that was a thing that I thought about, but I didn't realize was so interesting. I just thought it was a weird thing that I did, as an example.
That's amazing. I got to read this whole case study and see.
Okay, yes,
and then you
it's
have
long.
Branded Like Serhant. So the book is coming out February 6th.
February 6th.
That's
yeah.
your third book.
Yes, I forgot to bring it. Yes. I'm here. I'm so excited about the
I
two
was
of you.
hoping to get
This
it.
has nothing to do with me.
So listen, and what Sarah loves, and she expressed this to me, is that you actually, when people join the team, they also are able to get you actually you do these like weekly meetings.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
brainstorms and
weekly.
strategy
Yes,
sessions. And
every week on a Friday.
I want everyone to be.
So most places don't do that, because this is the only experience I have, behind the scenes working.
I think other places probably do it on somewhat of like a small local scale. Like it would be like, it's like the difference between maybe people on this floor getting together once a week and talking about the podcasting and the radio world versus once a week Bob getting out and talking to everybody and giving you ideas and thoughts and strategies on the market. Here's what I'm seeing. It's super transparent. This is how the business is going. This is what I want you to put into action. Let's go into the weekend.
Okay.
Different.
Yeah, so Sarah, talk about those weekly meetings.
Oh,
and
yeah,
things, 'cause
Sarah,
she's-
talk about those weekly
I love
meetings.
Make sure you're going.
They're different. They're all different.
Everyone is signing on. And again, like it's nice that you have a CEO that sits down with the entire company once a week and strategize and bring on speakers that are in the market and know what's going on. I mean, we had the chief economist of Street Easy that came into our office to talk about what's going to trends and what's happening in 2024. That was a huge thing. Like, I've never seen that in a company. And these are the things that we look forward to every week. As the leader of a team, I sit down every week on a Tuesday with the team, and we kind of like dissect the markets that we're in and how to change things and how to operate and how to do business in a better way. But Ryan sits down and he speaks to the entire company once a week, and it's great. He has a book, he has training sessions, we have access to sell it like Serhant. I mean, this is something like agents from other companies are paying and we're getting it for free.
Right.
There's a real community. You have referral partners across the U.S. and there's no deal that I feel like I can come to Ryan and say like, hey, I've got a big listing or I got a small listing. I have a challenge with this. He's there and I have no idea how he answers my texts within 30 seconds.
AI.
Only you, though.
I don't know how he does that.
I don't care.
I text him on Christmas and New Year's and Ryan responds back. I'm like, wait, he's with his family.
First of all, Sarah, I cannot
How?
believe that you texted him on New Year's. You couldn't wait
Yeah,
a day.
Happy New Year's, Ryan.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
it's
texting
me.
him work stuff.
No.
Yeah, she's like, pick up the phone. We have a deal to deal with right now. Let's go. Let's go.
I was like, sheesh, Sarah. Sarah's about her business, though, and I think that is one of the things
True.
that I appreciate and love about her during the pandemic when people really weren't working.
Yes.
And they were like, you know what? We just got to sit down. We can't do this. We can't do that.
pandemic?
Sarah was working nonstop.
Yeah,
and
we
she
were
would work all the
busy.
time. We would go on trips and she'd be like, I can come for 10 hours, but then I have to go back home
Yeah,
for
true.
a
We
showing.
went to Dave Chappelle's house and everyone is hanging out. And like, no, I got to get on the flight 5 o'clock in the morning because I have open houses that
In
Sunday.
Ohio?
In Ohio.
We were in Ohio, and
5
she
o'clock in
flew
the morning.
back.
Flew
Yeah.
back for open house at 9 o'clock in the
Gotta
morning.
show up.
Yeah.
It's
Show up.
It's a part of this business too. I mean, it's all work, but definitely in this business, it is because there's no salary and because there's no benefits. Like your success is what you make of it.
Right.
Like if you put in, it's the only business I know, and this is kind of for all sales, where the harder you work, the easier you make luck to find you.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Like, and it's just a unique way to think it through.
Yeah, and I'll say because that's why we gravitated toward each other early. I was working with like 3 different realtors.
Yeah.
And Sarah was the one that.
And well, she probably. Did you hurt them? Did you? No one's ever heard of those other realtors
Yeah,
ever
no, I
since.
have no idea
They're
where they
gone
are.
now forever.
But she was the last person that I called just because I happened to see a house. And she was the only one that I felt like really sat down. She was like, well, come to the office. Let's meet. Once I took the real estate exam, I realized the protocol that she was following. But it is true. And I felt like she cared. And I think that matters a lot, like to have that person.
Well, she does,
touch.
actually.
Yeah.
I mean, she is one of the few out there in the industry who really works at this personally and cares about your success. I mean, most agents are very, they're transactional. It works or it doesn't work, whatever, do a deal, I'm on to the next one. But I mean, you can see like your relationship together has stood the test of time. And I think that's not just a testament to both of you liking each other, but also like she's in it to help everybody.
Everything turns into business. And one thing they asked me when I was joining the team was, what do I want to specialize in? And I said, I really want to help people buy their first home because I remember how that made me feel.
Sure.
To have somebody who was experienced, somebody who wanted to make sure that I got
protect them,
what I wanted, and to understand what was realistic too.
Yeah.
As well. And so that's really the area that I want to help specialize in. Just because I'm from Brooklyn, I live there now. It's not a cheap place.
No.
To purchase real estate. And I don't want to be part of like a story. I never would want to be part of a story where somebody's like, this was an awful experience. I'm so mad I did it. I want to be that. She helped me so much. She was amazing. Like, this was a great purchase. I love it. And I want to do more. Yeah. And that's the feeling I got. And so I want to be able to pass that on and help people in that way.
Nice.
So,
well, we're very excited to have you.
I'm excited
Let's
to be
do
there.
it. Let's go. You want to leave right now?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go to showings right now. We got listing presentations. I got stuff in the car. We are on the road.
I think we should just shadow Ryan today.
Yeah, let's shadow Ryan. One last thing I wanted to ask you, how much does presentation matter? Because I was telling Sarah, I was like, okay, I have to buy like some more like suits. And she was like, no, Angela, that's not really your, like, you should be able to come. She
has her own style. She's very
you got to
unique.
be on brand with you.
Yeah.
But I was like, do I need to like look at
Yee.
Sarah? You guys always look, dapper. And I'm like, okay, I won't wear a sweatsuit, but I was like, maybe I'll wear like a blazer and some jeans, but I do want to make sure I look the part too.
You have very fancy sweatshirts and jeans.
Listen, you want to be, something that we work on with salespeople all the time is creating their personal brands. And the first step to creating that personal brand is really truly diving into what your core identity is. So you are the one who, what? Like, she mentioned, I was the media broker, but that was a purposeful decision on my part to be real estate and media, so that I could use that niche to then build on top of it. So for you, like, you don't want to show up in, your Saturday morning outfit, but like, the clothes that you would wear on a job interview or something on a Tuesday, like what is that outfit? I don't know. I've just always worn suits because when I graduated school and I came to New York, it was this or gym clothes. So and then I got stuck with it. I would totally wear, your gold sweat outfit that you're wearing right now if I could. It'd be way more comfortable than this thing.
I will say, Angela has an amazing collection of shoes.
I'm sure.
And her outfits are always on point. Her shoes are always on point.
Because I think when it comes to branding, people do look at you, and if certain things stick out, they're like, I love the shoes that she had on, or that was a nice.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah, shoes.
Be like, where these shoes could go? In your new brownstone, right over here.
Shoes off
in the closet, in the custom built closet.
How hard is it when you have to show these amazing homes and you want them?
I mean, I bought. Two of them.
You did buy two of them. One was in Greenwich, or was it?
One was in Soho.
Oh, Soho. Okay.
One was in Soho, and then one was my house in Brooklyn. So that's happened to me twice now. It's been like, this is a deal. And usually they're just funky. They're weird. And we know very much, like, presentation, like you said, for property is everything.
Right.
So it's got to have that amazing first impression. If a property doesn't have a great first impression, the price might be great, but people aren't going to buy it. And so, you can come in and, can use that to your advantage and get a good deal.
There's probably times all the time. That's what's hard for me. I'll be like, I want this house. Like, some of them are so amazing. I saw one you have now that has the garage, which is a luxury in Manhattan to have your own parking garage and be able to walk in.
Yes.
That's a rarity. People who come here are like, you paid all this for this house and there's no parking?
Yeah. Yeah, they're always confused. Even people coming from Manhattan and coming into Brooklyn, they're like, "What? Where are we? What is this place?" Like, it still blows my mind. Yeah. Still crazy.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to be joining you.
I'm excited to have you. Let's go.
And branded like Serhant, February 6th. You'll be at Barnes & Noble's also, right?
Yeah, Barnes & Noble, I think on February 5th. At 6 p.m., kind of my wife will be there roasting me on stage.
Perfect.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Will it though?
Oh, Oh, it will. Amelia is funny.
And I know you said you had some huge announcement coming. When do we find that out?
I thought it was going to be yesterday, and then we were told it now has to be next week. So, it'll be next week. There's 2 big things that come out next week. Next week's a big week for us.
Okay, well, I cannot wait to
Stay tuned
to be able to use AI to insert that. No. All right, well, thank you so much. And Sarah, you guys will be seeing Sarah and I online also, because we plan to do a whole lot of content as well. And we're already plotting it out. So thank you.
Stay tuned for Angela's Reno show.
Yes.
Way Up with Angela Yee.